It was really ahead of its time in terms like of the drama and stuff like that. It's basically like there was this group of I wish I could remember the name of the aliens who, they're not to say aliens, but the antagonists in the series, who basically were genetically engineered slaves, if you will, who were sent out by the planet Earth to colonize different planets. They basically revolted and overthrew, came together in a sort of a semi-truce for a few years.
It's a cartoon.
It's a cartoon.
Come on, Benny, man. The kid is a L7 Weenie.
Mask on, mask off. How you want to do it? Both
I mean,
masks
wash your hands lately?
Yeah, I washed my hands before I got here, so I'm good.
Take a shower?
Almost definitely.
Hey, we straight there. I'm good if you are. So,
all right.
So I'll leave it up to you.
So do you come out to Chicago often?
Yeah. So I have family up here. Mm-hmm. So my grandma lives just over off of 73rd and Stony Island.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah. So like 8 minutes away.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, we used to live on I forget. Probably forgot because things ended so badly with the condo. 71st and Lakeshore.
I like how that sounds so ominous. The condo. Like.
You have to go back and get your
Terrible story. Misery.
Probably.
I'd love to hear it if you'd love to tell it.
I still might have to sue somebody one day, so
alright.
We'll leave that one alone.
Espionage involved with this.
Somebody give me the right paperwork.
Alright, can you see yourself? Are you in there?
Yeah, I think so. A little bit more. How's that?
Alright, cool. Sorry. This way, if you could, thank you. First day comics customer go through.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been doing a podcast for?
This is like I've been doing it sort of since like the beginning of the year. I sort of switched up the format about 2 months ago.
Yes, I'm still working on it.
Where now it's more so with guests each time, like more of a Joe Rogan style.
Gotcha.
So, because I could talk into a camera and just make up goofy stuff for like 30 minutes or whatever, but it's like, yeah, I don't know, it's just more fun to talk to people. I like, because I would be doing it and then just be looking forward to the ones where I would have a guest on. I'm like, well, let's just do that all the time. And then I can just make clips out of the longer ones, and that way I can have a more, what's the word, cruise control, just automatic content going up.
They call it the funnel.
Yeah, schedule it out and don't have to worry about it as much. So, I was like, yeah, it just makes more sense to do it like
What kind of guests you had on in Georgia?
My dad and my second cousin.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you're the first one, not related to me. So there's something to be proud of in that, I think.
Gotcha. So that with your dad and your second cousin, what were they bringing to the show, if you don't mind my asking?
Oh, we just talked about whatever. I think me and my dad at one point talked about Thanksgiving not being sexy.
Okay.
And then me and my cousin, we got onto the topic of Katrina and comparing that to just. So so it's just whatever, you know.
Yeah, so free flow.
Yeah, I'm like, I mean, we're obviously gonna talk about comics at some point, but it's just like, there's more to you than I'm sure.
Okay.
So like again, the condo. What is up with this condo? You don't have to,
right,
but
no, I'll give some information on that because I'll be warning people on condos. So you want to join a gang? If you want to be ruled by a gang, join a condo.
All right.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about that.
Okay.
Maybe some young people out there help you make a mistake.
More mistakes means more experiences, which means a better life.
Sometimes. Sometimes it's just a mistake. All right, so let me know when you're ready to go.
We're going.
Oh, we're going. All right.
Yeah,
In that case, then, all right. No problem. Okay, so I'll talk about the condo then.
Yeah.
So my wife, I'm originally from New York. I'm from the Bronx, and my wife owned a condo when I came here to Chicago with the purpose intent of getting married. I believe she had the condo, I don't know how many years, but at least a few years before we got there. Unfortunately, in terms of like we were talking about, I won't say so much a mistake, but we'll say what you learn is you learn the importance of due diligence.
Okay.
So I think she wished she had done a little bit more due diligence beforehand. So as we were going along, married, moved to the condo, seemed to be okay. There were some things that were like a little run down, like some of the facade in the buildings and things like that. But basically, everything seemed to be kind of going along until. So when we got married, it was in 2008.
Right.
So this basically we got married about a few months before the financial crisis hit.
Cool.
So first the financial crisis hit. Ain't no cool about that. First the financial crisis hit, which resulted in the property losing about half its value as a result of that. And then it was like maybe a couple of years later, I don't remember when, but probably so see, we've been out of there for about 3 or 4 years now. So about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, there was this one winter where basically three things seemed to go wrong in the condo. The garage parking lot flooded. The laundry room went down for a couple of days, and the elevators were always breaking down.
Triple threat.
Yeah, triple threat.
Yep.
So then it became a question of, then that's the time when you start attending more owners meetings. At that point, find out what's going on. And basically, to make a long story short, having some accounting experience, pushed on financial statements and accounts for the condo. So basically what we found out was that the operating condo had basically less than $2,000 in it at the time. So in Illinois, you're supposed to have 2 accounts. You have the operating account, and I believe there's like maybe like capital improvement spots. So you have 2 accounts, one for like emergencies, if you will, one for the operating fund. So they didn't have the second account. Okay. And then the operating account, they only had $2,000, which is ridiculous.
Where was this, by the way?
This is this is a lakefront. I don't know what they're calling it now. They may be calling it something different. I'll hold off on exactly saying what it is because I still have friends who live there, so I'm not jacking them up. But let's just suffice it to say it was it was not good. Okay. So it was not good. So some people are still there roughing it out, but basically for us it was like, even if things got back on track in terms of overcoming the loss of value in the condo from the 2008 financial crisis, then overcoming all the financial difficulties because it was then discovered that at least at 1 year, at least $90,000 had been embezzled. They couldn't account for it, so I call that embezzlement.
That's an adult word.
Yeah, that's a very adult word. Yeah. And essentially, it was just like, even if we hung in there, it would be great for the kids or the grandkids in terms of owning property outright, but we wouldn't own it within our lifetimes, our lifetime. So we decided to get out, and then we had gone to a couple of things to like some seminars to find out about condos and what we could do, what action we would take. And basically what the guy one of the seminars said was, he said, look, if you move into a condo, unless you serve on the board, you really have nothing to say. You're being ruled by three to five people who basically operate as a gang, and they can tell you what you're going to pay and what you're not going to pay, and what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. Wow. So by the grace of God, we were able to get out of that situation and not have to really pay anybody any significant fee, any money. And now we're at least, and maybe it's not as, how can I say it? Because I like the west side, but let's just say there's a difference between living on the lakefront and living on the west side.
There's a reason they call it the side.
There's a reason why they call it the side. Exactly.
There's a difference.
Yeah, but basically we've been over there for probably about 3 years now, which has been good. So definitely we're moved into a nice home, which is good. My girls love it. But basically, what I would say to anybody thinking about doing a condo is 2 things. It's due diligence, and you better serve on the board. Other than that, you're taking a chance.
All right, see?
Those definitely. But it's like, it's just like you were saying, it's like the more mistakes you make, sometimes the more mistakes you make, the more experience you get. The real trick is not to make the same mistakes twice.
Right. So, like you were saying, passing on to your grandchildren. It's like, that's you pass on that knowledge, and then the second generation has it, and they make the same mistakes. Yep. But maybe second, third, fourth generation, maybe they catch on. So
at some point, somebody will listen.
Yeah, it's about the long hustle. It's not about getting it now.
No,
too much pressure.
Yeah, so for me, that was, I'd probably say, my first big personal real estate experience. Before that, I owned a co-op back in New York, which is still in my name and all that kind of stuff. But it's basically, that co-op's a little bit different. I don't even think they have co-ops in Illinois, but co-ops in New York, basically it's just, it's more like you're renting the place out and you kind of own it. And then you still don't have a whole bunch of say in it. But it's worth what it's worth. I don't think it doesn't seem to be as affected by the real estate market as say a condo is. Which and especially with co-ops, you at least with this one in New York, you can't sell it when you want to. The co-op is responsible for selling it to somebody and things like that. So really, you just have equity in the place. But but at the same time, you don't have to worry about a whole bunch of stuff. You don't have to worry about a whole bunch of things like facades. You do, but at least my experience with that co-op in New York has been a lot more positive than it was with this privately owned condo in Chicago. Another thing was that there was a lot of work they just didn't do. The board they had reports basically telling them when to fix stuff and things like that. They just didn't follow it. So between them and the management company, it was just poorly managed. Yeah, due diligence is a big thing. You know who you're getting into bed with. It's always important, as much as you can. You know, so yeah, people will lie and hide stuff from you, but you try to reduce the likelihood of that as much as you can. So,
yeah.
Boo on condos.
it's interesting though. Did you meet your wife in New York and y'all moved to Chicago?
Well, no, actually, my wife and I had dated in college. I was at Columbia University, and she was at Barnard College, which is the sister school right across the street. So we knew each other back in the naughty 90s.
Okay.
And then we basically lost touch from that point forward. We broke up. And then
Here we go.
I think we met like one time during those 11 years when we were broken up. And then we ended up meeting again back in 2000, I believe it was 2007. Yeah, 2007. So basically, probably broke her at 95, and 2007 is when we reconnected. So the reason why we reconnected was because back in the early days of the internet, I would go on comment sections and make comments. There was this one young lady who was a black conservative who was just making all these crazy remarks, and basically, I was like, yeah, kind of like, I think I remember right, you really don't know what you're talking about, but if you'd like to talk some more about it, I put my email address in the comments section. So I guess my wife at that, my future fiance, now wife, I guess she had Googled me at some point, and that comment section came up, and she saw the email address, and that's how she got in touch with me.
Wow.
So now the real weird, I won't say the weird part, but the great part of the story is, right before that, I pretty much was rediscovering my faith as a Christian, and I was getting to the point in my life where I was like, man, God's been real good, but I do like women. And I was having a little bit of a struggle with basically keeping myself quote unquote pure, if you will.
Hey, sometimes you just gotta be you.
Yeah, so sometimes I can be you. But I said, no, I'm not gonna be me. So I went to my dad about it. I said, it's just like, things are really going good with the Lord right now, and it's like I have this urge. He's like, well, the Lord has an answer for that. So basically making a hit at basically considering getting married. So basically I went back home that night and basically said a little prayer in the model of Solomon, which is you don't ask for what you want exactly, but you ask the Lord essentially for the spirit, like, Lord, kind of give me, not so much give me a wife, but it's like, give me someone that I can love no matter what. Not specifically praying for a person, but praying for the type of relationship that you think would be beneficial, that you think would honor God.
That's cool.
Yeah,
it's like seeking the energy more so than the actual
exactly
physical form.
Yeah. So I got lucky. So he basically gave me my heart's desire, because my wife Tara is someone who I always had deep feelings and emotions for. Anybody in my family will tell you that. And I don't think I really dated that much in the meantime, because she really did have my heart. But basically about 30 days after that prayer is when I got the email from her. And about 30 days after that, I proposed. So it was pretty much a done deal. But yep. It's so that's how we met. And then that's how I ended up here in Chicago. February of 2008, and we got married in June 14th, 2008.
So you just had an anniversary, huh?
Just had the anniversary, yeah.
Right.
That's
Congratulations.
That's how I remember the date.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's been 12 years, and it's been 12 good years. Like, a lot of times people say, oh, marriage is hard. And yeah, it is, but not necessarily because it's hard in and of itself. It's more, a lot of times what it is that sometimes it's just outside circumstances. And I say for the most part, I've really enjoyed being married. It can get difficult sometimes, especially I think when you get married a little bit later. Because as one of my ex-girlfriends, I was visiting with one of my ex-girlfriends way back when her mom was getting married. And then what she said is that, the longer you wait to get married, the more baggage people bring into the relationship. And not necessarily a negative thing, it's just they got more life experience, they have more, sometimes there are some negative things they bring into it, but you just have people who are more sure about themselves than they maybe people who are younger. So that could be a good thing or a bad thing. It's like if you have more baggage coming in and it's mature baggage, yay. If you have a lot of bad, immature baggage, no. Right. They won't do that. But marriage is really what you make of it. So that's sometimes when I do get the privilege of talking to couples about marriage. That's what I tell them. I said, look, it's like that old credit card slogan. It's like, master the possibilities. That's what it is. You have limitless possibilities of what your marriage can be, and there will be parts of the world that will do what it can to basically mess up your relationship or mess up the good times you're having.
Yeah.
But the more you can control what goes on in your home, making your home a sanctuary, a place of peace from the world, and not thinking of your spouse as your enemy or your arch nemesis, then I think the better off it'll be. And then when kids come along, it's a whole other thing after that. But it's like, if you can be intentional about creating a relationship where each person feels like you're complimenting them or completing them in a sense, and when your kids feel like it's a safe space, and I don't mean that in the way a lot of people use it now, but a place where, again, it's a sanctuary from the outside world.
Yeah.
You can really have you can have a real nice time with it. So, as in all things in life, it's what you make of it. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perspective will take you far.
Yeah, it will take you far. Like they say, the grass is greener. It was always green on the other side. Yeah, look at the other side sometimes and say, "Nah, it's all right over here."
Yeah.
It's
like with the condo.
There you go, with the condo. That's right. It's like, look good for a minute.
Yeah, it was like, man, this was a really good idea a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, what were we smoking to me?
It's like, Is Bliss. So.
Yeah. Hey, that is a key reason why I don't be on the news as much nowadays. It can be draining to just be a little too informed sometimes.
Yeah.
Like,
and there's a difference between current events, keeping up on current events, and just being constantly exposed to that. Yeah. You're right. Yeah, we were talking about that last night in my house. It's just like sometimes you definitely need a break from things like that because it's good to know that stuff is happening, but it's like that's not everybody's life all the time.
Yeah, and I think it like one, it does create like somewhat of a distorted reality. Even when it comes with being informed about things like that, it can create somewhat distorted reality if you take it in the wrong direction. Yeah. But also, I don't think people are built to be able to take in that much information at one in a certain time frame. You have to be able to, you have to be a very mature, very weathered person to be able to take in that much input. Yeah. And still function. Yeah, and I think even then, even if you are a mature and weathered person, it's still just a question. You gotta give yourself a break at some point. Because I remember the young lady that lives with us, Brina, we were talking about that just in terms of a lot of the civil unrest and Black Lives Matter and stuff like that, and even talking about knowing your history, and especially for Black people. What some of the history is that, like I told us, I've watched stuff, and then sometimes you watch some things, and you need 2 years of comedies and action films just to do that, because you just taking in so much of it. It's just like it can be a little traumatic sometimes. So I told her, there'll be some heavy drama films I've watched, and I think a favorite of mine is Once Were Warriors, and I watched that. Well, that's about basically the Maori people in New Zealand, and it's basically the story of this family, the Musk family. And pretty much, it's just I wouldn't say it's like a slice of life story, but it definitely deals with a lot of sexual assault, domestic violence, and things along those lines. A slice of life.
Yeah, slice of life. And it's very graphic. It's very graphic. Like the very first, probably 10 minutes of the movie is very graphic depiction of domestic violence. And I watched that movie, and I can't remember what the other one was. But yeah, those two pretty much threw me for a loop, and I could not watch a serious movie for about 2 years after that. It had to be a comedy or sci-fi or something that just was not real, if you will. So you do have to be mindful of what you expose yourself to. Sometimes you need to know that information, but you have to be mindful of who you are. And some people are more, like you said, they are more weathered or maybe even predisposed to it than other people. But even those who are, self-care is definitely something that you have to watch out for, because it can be a little overwhelming. Yeah, like I said, we used to watch Law and Order SVU all the time. Like I said, your doses. When you go to the hotel, watch it on TNT.
I still ain't seen this show.
Oh, yes?
I've never watched a full episode of Law and Order. There's a bunch of TV movies. I just started watching The Sopranos.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's good. I was like 3 episodes in. It's like, what took me so long?
So what do you attribute to your lack of television exposure?
I make stuff. I'm a cartoonist.
Okay.
So like I've been making comics and just drawing and more so making stuff. Like, you know, there's consumers and then there's producers.
Yeah.
And I'm more so on the side of producing. So I only take in about like a little bit, and then I'm more so busy just producing stuff. So
How long have you been doing cartoons and stuff?
since I was like 7.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like you familiar with the book Captain Underpants?
Yes, I am.
So when that first dropped back in like '97, and it hit the book fair at my school, and I was like, you know, like it's not like before then I just had a disdain for books or whatever. It was just like it's not really something that's pulling my way. But then I went through, you know, they take the class, go through the book fair, see if you like it, and then I walk through and I see Captain Underpants book. I was like, you know, there's something about this. And then, you know, you pick it up and then it's like, wow, this is cool. And then it's like, wow, I'm really broke. And then it's like, I can't afford this. So I spent like maybe a week, 2 weeks just going, I think it's, just a couple days just going back and forth to the book fair just to look at it. And then I eventually bit my mom's ear far enough to be like, hey, can I get this book? And so I got it, and then I just got really into, it's like, yeah, the kids make comics. They sell them to their students. Like, that makes sense to me. Like yeah, let's just start making comics. So I made like a bootleg Captain Underpants comic that same year, and I've just been going ever since. Yeah, because
I would probably say I'm half and half. I'm producer and a consumer. And as more as the producing stuff is coming up, I understand why the consumption stuff drops off. It's more, you get more select about what you're consuming as opposed to consuming everything. So my dream is at some point, if things go well, maybe I can retire in the next 20 years, and maybe my eye-hand skill coordination is to be good enough. I can play through all those video games I have. If not, there will be a very lucky young man or a young woman, or maybe more than that, who will be inheriting a lot about the video game collection, if not comic book collection.
I mean, nowadays, though, you can just start a YouTube channel. If YouTube's still around back then, you title it like, Old Man Wants to Play Video Games.
Basically.
And you just record yourself trying, like, just sucking trash. But people will love you for it. You know, that's how you flip that. It's like, you know what? Like, yeah, I suck, but I leaned into it. Right. And now look how happy I am.
My Twitch channel, I'm trying.
Like, yeah, just like, and like companies send you games to suck at for a living. Like, imagine being that guy.
I'm gonna have to use that. I'm gonna need a reason for it at some point in my life. But let me ask you this: so since you, it sounds like you've been doing the producing stuff more so than the consumption. Where do you get your ideas from?
So, like you said, I'm just select, and it's just really about like just picking and choosing what I like, and just taking it and going from there. So it comes from ideas come from a lot of different places. It's biggest influence was definitely this guy. Dragon Ball Z.
Huge fan.
Dragon Ball Z really kicked me into high gear. That whole Toonami, that 90s Cartoon Network era hit me hard. So, you know, like there was a minute where my style was really similar to Powerpuff Girls. And like, cause that was cool. And that Powerpuff Girls don't get enough credit. Cause there's like like legions of dudes who was like very much into Powerpuff Girls, Sailor Moon, even Hamtaro, and that is not something I like to be proud. Like, I'm not proud of that. Like, all I watch is anime. The worst
you'll be now is you'll be the anime version of a brony. So.
Yeah, it's like but yeah. So I started off really Toonami, and then you know just pick up things as you go, because I'm not always creating stuff. So it's just about what catches my eye here and there, what I think syncs up to my creative direction a lot. I got really into Red versus Blue for a while, you know, the Machinima series, and that kind of propelled me into a new space where then I think I got into Parks and Rec a lot, and like just similar comedic styles, because I do mostly comedy and then action with it. So, like, similar comedy styles, like, went from Red vs. Blue, Parks and Rec, Office, then, like, maybe some stand-ups, Bill Burr. I feel like I'm skipping an era. But,
I got you. I hear what you're saying.
But, yeah, it just comes from different places. And then, like, as I've gotten older and become a lot more aware of the industry and everything and how different artists approached in different places, like overseas in France or Japan versus here, and you can see things, you know, you're old enough to remember how other things used to be.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, okay, yeah, their animation level seems to be dropping over here, but it's handled with a certain, you know, respect overseas, and you know, so I got really into Sakuga animation for a bit. And that influences how I do a lot of my fight scenes. I study more so Sakuga animation. So it comes from different places. I remember I wrote a comic strip off of just listening to a Salt and Pepper song one time. So it was just it comes from a bunch of different places, but it's really just selecting, and then like, so it's not too widespread. It's just like, oh, this is cool, and then this keeps my attention for a while, and then I just hop on to something else. So so yeah, it's just selective.
Yeah, so let me ask you this, because now for me, getting into Dragon Ball Z, this was back before we helped you guys get Toonami. So for us, it was all VHS tapes and bootlegs. So you go down to 42nd Street.
Hey, we was a little bit in that era. Like I got my friend's Ninja Scroll. Like he keeps like, hey man, I got Ninja Scroll on tape. I'm like, okay, let's see what this is about.
There you go.
It's like, oh my god, titties. And then, you know, it's like, like that movie opens up in a strange way. But it's cool. It's a really cool movie though. But yeah, we it was like not to try and steal y'all generation shine, but we definitely were like right in the middle.
Yes.
Like I was born in 1990, so we were like right in the middle of like everything. We caught the Looney Tune era because they were still running that hard on Cartoon Network. We caught the bootleg, you know, tape era. Then we had like our new stuff, the cartoons going, Toonami, anime just hit, like, and then so we really got like PlayStation, Nintendo 64. It all hit really hard.
Because the great thing about, I think the great thing about the 90s was that, like, so now coming from before that era, being born in the 70s, was that you saw how it went from probably about the 80s, where it's kind of like, to go to comics for a bit, you had to be Marvel or DC. I think once you got to the 90s, it was very eclectic. You could like whatever you wanted to like, as long as it was good and it kind of in some way resonated. So like I said, I know for like the 90s, the big, for me, what represented the most how eclectic it was, I think like probably three of the best animated series, at least on the American side, were Batman animated series, Mighty Max, and Exo Squad. So like those three very different series.
What were those last two?
Mighty Max and Exo Squad.
What were those?
So Mighty Max was about this. It was based on this. There was a series of toys called Polly Pocket, if I remember right.
Okay.
And basically it was aimed at girls. But then I believe they did a boy series as well, which is called Mighty Max. So they had these little toys that would fit into like these bigger, almost like mini play sets.
Okay.
And they basically did like I believe it was a 13-episode series on. Yeah, they did a 13-episode series that was syndicated called Mighty Max, which really had one of the best endings that I've ever seen in a cartoon series. I recommend everybody check it out if you can. Probably can grab it on YouTube. It kind of starts off a little, it's probably like a little generic in the beginning, like standard kind of like, you know, one-off episodes. But it's like the dynamics between the characters, Max, Virgil, and Norman, I think is the bodyguard guy, are pretty good. But there was like at least one episode in there, I think it was like the Magnificent Seven, something like that. That was good. And the two-part season finale, which ended up being the series finale, was like excellent. Exo Squad is another one series that was along the lines of it was a toy series by Playmates that I think they were trying to push, but it was like for that time it dealt with like military themes, political themes, a lot of action, war, just basically one big sci-fi war story. And again, I think it went 2 seasons. Like the first one, I think you could still get on DVD. Second one, I think you might can find some places digitally, on digital distribution. But it was just like, it was really ahead of its time in terms like of the drama and stuff like that. It's basically like there was this group of, I wish I could remember the name of the aliens who, they're not to say aliens, but the antagonists in the series, who basically were genetically engineered slaves, if you will, who were sent out by the planet Earth to colonize different planets. They basically revolted and overthrew, came together in sort of a semi-truce for a few years.
It's a cartoon.
It's a cartoon. Then they rebelled against their human masters, and now they rule. The name of the guy, the main villain, is Phaeton. I'm trying to remember the name of the race of the genetic ship. But exactly, just on that alone, you can see it's like, okay, there's a whole.
They didn't shortchange kids back then. Stories were a lot I guess you say intelligent or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I always think back to like Batman, Gargoyles.
Gargoyles. Okay, there you go.
Was a
That's another
cartoon
one.
where
Yeah.
it's like. It's like I went back and watched it like a year or so ago, and this dude dropped like it was like maybe the second episode or whatever, and it was like right when the Gargoyles first meeting the cop lady, and like he dropped a line that I was like, damn, like he said. Like, cause she said, what is this or what is this or something? She tried to like get them to explain something to him, and he was like, "What is with you humans and names? Like, why you have to name something so you can give it limits?" And I was like, "Whoa, like, oh, all right, like that was deep for a cartoon."
And then when you get later on to the series, I think particularly the second season, where they're heavily drawn on Shakespeare, especially with the character Lily named Macbeth in that. And it's just, and what it is I think what it was really great about all of those series is that you realize how much they were investing in character.
Yeah.
They were creating characters that it was like you really believed in. They were resonant. And when I said this in another video with someone, they were resonant, they were relevant. And it's like almost like they were writing their own stories. But it was a real renaissance, if you will. So you take that going on here in the States, and then you take the anime coming in. It's just a whole different ball game at that point. You can just see all the possibilities, whether it's from comedy to drama to action to sci-fi.
Perfect storm.
It's a perfect storm. It's a perfect storm. So yeah, you guys in the 90s.
And then you start talking about Michael Jordan. And
exactly.
So, this other stuff going on with hip hop and
so the 90s was a real, I think, definitely for what we now call geek culture. The 90s was the culmination of a lot of stuff, especially like in comics. It was like
sometimes I feel like America peaked too soon in the 90s. Like you kept going and you should have slowed down. It's like it's okay to be good at one or two things. Like Michael Jordan, NBA, Seinfeld. Like you got a couple things going. This is good. We're good. Let's just wait till the next decade. No. Let's get Dragon Ball Z in here. Let's get Pokemon in here. Like whoa, too many icons, too little. You just threw too much.
Yeah, I think it was manageable. I think sometimes what really did it in was maybe more on the business end of it. That's what I always feel like not really. Like sometimes I listen to guys like I don't know if you're familiar with Eric Bischoff. He used to run WCW wrestling, so I listen to his podcast with I know the host's first name Conrad. I think it's Conrad Hauser. I want to say his last name is. So they do one called 83 Weeks. And it's interesting listening to when Eric Bischoff talks about stuff. Not definitely the wrestling stuff, but also more so the when he talks about the business side of things. So I was listening to one of his podcasts this morning where he was talking about basically having momentum. So it's like, you can sometimes you get momentum. When you get it, it's like a lot of it's based on timing. So I think in the 90s, that's what it was. It was like everything came together, like you said, perfect storm right at the right time. He says the problem is the only thing harder than getting momentum is maintaining it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's like if you're not conscious about maintaining the momentum, you lose it. Someone say you have to have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D.
Yeah.
Some of that might be because you just didn't think it was going to hit, so you didn't think about a plan B.
Right.
And I think if anything with the 90s and that era, I don't think people on the business side of it really knew what to do with a hit or success once they had it.
Yeah, it was just a lot, and they were just trying to soak as much out of it as they can.
So it was like, for me, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I was pretty much almost there at the ground floor of it. And it's like, when you look at that, it's like those guys didn't expect that to blow up the way that it did. And you look at the amount of time it took for it to go from when they put in the first comic to getting to the success that they enjoyed, especially when the feature films hit. Who would have anticipated that? And I don't think we've seen anything like that since Superman or Batman, and you haven't really seen anything since then, with the exception of maybe Image Comics and then maybe Walking Dead would be the two that I would give that spot to. I'm sure people out there think some other ones, but those are the two that stick in my head. It was like there was Turtle money, then there was Image money, then there was Walking Dead money. But it's like even when you look at Kirkman, and that's one of at least the publishing philosophy we'll be borrowing from him in Animated Concepts, is that he said he wrote the first 6 issues of The Walking Dead as if he weren't going to write enough beyond that. So he got as much as he could in those first 6 issues. Because I think he had done a few series before that where they got canceled, none of them went beyond 6. And then so you look at how that hit, and then I'm sure he had a plan to keep it going beyond that. But it's like, you're right, it was really kind of a magical little time. the 90s. It really was. And it was just, there was so much stuff that was going on. A lot of one-hit wonder stuff, but a lot of stuff that really, you know, it has gone on to last and have a legacy. Yeah. And it was just a lot of creativity. Both good and bad.
Rewinding back a second, what's your favorite incarnation of the Turtles?
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay, I got an answer for that. My favorite incarnation was the original comic book series.
Okay.
That's the one that I loved. And the first animated miniseries. Which was the it was the 80.
Was that the 87? Like
the 87, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with that, because that one seemed to those first 5 episodes definitely had what the franchise was going to be in terms of the more goofy stuff. I think it retained just enough of the comic book one that it's kind of like a little footnote. It's like a little footnote, if you will, in between 2 versions. So it's kind of like an in between.
Yeah. When
it came back to the regular series, it got a lot more kid friendly, if you will. But I always remember because my favorite character was Michelangelo, and it's like in that first miniseries, while he was a goofball, when they did the fight scenes and stuff, he kind of had like an edge on him.
He did seem a lot tougher. It was like that first season. Yeah, I remember him being a lot more just like
he just go to town. So that's my favorite version of it. I love the movie version, the first movie version.
First movies
it goes in the books, as they say.
Yeah.
It goes in the books. The second one was terrible. The third one, they brought Casey Jones back, but they didn't do anything with him. And then the Michael Bay ones, it's like I can't do it. So it's just like, I've watched them. The second one, in my opinion, is a lot better than the first one. And it's like, but it just has its moments. But even my daughters don't like them, so I'm like, my daughters don't even like it. They're like, okay, I'm good. I'm going like, eh. But yeah, definitely and that's the thing about Turtles was that I think which was so exciting about it was, it looked like a book that somebody in your class would come up with. But it was like, it was just fun. It was just fun. It was imaginative. I mean,
it was like the underground comic.
It was underground comic.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, if we got together in the cafeteria or something on the playground of my house, we just said we went through a book, that's what it would look like. And I think that's what a lot of the appeal of it was. And I think it was something that then when you get to, now I gotta get my years straight here. So then when you get to 3 or 4 years later, and all the guys from Image come along, I think that's what a lot of the appeal of them was too. It was like, these were guys that, it was like, I kind of do who draws like that, but this guy's doing it at Marvel, and it's like, it kind of looks cool. It kind of looks cool, especially Rob Liefeld was, and I think, Liefeld, he was the epitome of that. He was the absolute epitome. Whatever you think of Rob Liefeld, and yes, there's a lot to say about his art, his craft, but in terms of the success he was enjoying and how he was enjoying it and what he represented, nobody epitomized the kid in the high school who used to draw on his notebook binder, or draw on the desk, or draw on the wall, or draw on a bunch of paper. No one epitomized making it to that level more than he did. Nobody even matched that. Now, Jim Lee was the guy that came along who maybe was kind of like the Neil Adams of that age, if you will. Like, very good draftsman, very nice style. But it was like, but Rob was the one, was like the garage kid that made good.
What would you say Todd McFarlane was?
You know what, Todd McFarlane, I think he was like, I would probably say Todd was probably the more creative. That's how I look at Todd. Because I remember when somebody in high school introduced to me to his Incredible Hulk, the Hulk fought Wolverine, and it's got that cover where it's like Wolverine is facing the camera, has the claws up, and you can see the Hulk's reflection in it. I was like, that's dope. I said, that's dope. I had to ask you, my friend told it to me, he wouldn't let me borrow it for a bit, so I had to go into town to buy the book myself. But it's like with McFarlane, it was like, he was definitely the more creative. I mean, I didn't follow his Spider-Man that much. I definitely liked his Hulk stuff. I even had seen some of his Infinity Incorporated stuff. But the Infinity Incorporated stuff, he hadn't quite gotten to where he was when he was at Marvel in terms of his storytelling and stuff. But it was like, that Incredible Hulk run, that's what I remember. And that one was great. But I would say that he definitely was the more creative of the three. It's like he had the professionalism of Jim Lee because the stuff, it's just kind of like he had the professionalism of Jim Lee, but he kind of was like as creative as Liefeld could be, but it was a little bit more refined, I guess. Like Liefeld is like some of that stuff that you look at now, you just realize he could only get away with that because he was working at Marvel. Like if he had done that any place else, it'd been like, really, dude? But it's like, but McFarlane is, I mean, to me, McFarlane is more in retrospect. When you look at once he got the Image, definitely had a vision.
Yeah.
Had a vision more than the other two did in terms of what he was going to be, what the industry should be, and what he was going to do in that industry. Yeah. From that regard, he's head and shoulders above all. Between the comic book itself, how he has created a franchise there, love that HBO series, love the HBO Spawn animated series, love that series. What he's done in terms of toys and stuff like that, and even now, as you see, he's becoming more of a voice for how the industry is going to go forward. I wish him all the best with that because it needs it. It needs somebody who's going to, regardless of whether he's making a buck or not. And McFarlane's all about making a buck, so let's not get that wrong.
It's a business.
It's a business, but the thing is that you need somebody who's going to really champion and advocate for what the industry has to be as a whole, holistically, to go forward.
Yeah.
And I think there's very few guys who understand that, like McFarlane does. So, I ain't going to mess with nobody on the creator rights stuff, because I get that. I can get how some people would point out the hypocrisy of his stances on that at times. Mm-hmm. But in terms of somebody understanding that it's a creative business at the end of the day, there's few people that are going to ride with Todd McFarlane, even at Marvel and DC at this point. They don't even see the kid.
I mean, I just, I don't know, I'm not familiar as much with industry, like things, just what goes on and the do's and don'ts and the playing ball with Marvel or DC. I don't really know about that. I've always just been more so indie, like I'm doing my thing and everything like that. But from what it seems, just like from a what they call armchair perspective or whatever, it looks like they just don't invest in people anymore, like how they did back then. Like it was more so about championing Todd McFarlane or Jim Lee back then. Like, oh, this is our dude, he's on the squad. This is like if it was say you signed a music group or whatever, and it's like, oh yeah, we're championing them, we're getting them on all these different outlets, all these different projects, because these are our guys. Versus more so now, it's just like they more so just ride around town looking for an artist hanging out the window, like, hey, you want to come in here, want to draw something real quick?
I'll say this part. I think more. So I don't know if any of those artists would consider themselves being championed or taken care of by the publishers. I think it's actually would probably be, a lot of them would probably say the exact opposite. Mm-hmm. I think what the difference is now than before is that you did have a little bit more, and some people are going to like this word, gatekeeping. Yeah, I know, right? But gatekeeping, and by what I mean by that is that there were guys whom, and I'll use Mike Allred as an example. If anybody doesn't know who Mike Allred is the creator of Mad Men. All right. And he has written about how it was years before Karen Berger, who was the editor at DC's Vertigo, would give him a job, despite his success in the indies. So it was like, hey, I'm Mike Allred. I'm the guy who did Mad Men. I'm doing this over here. Let me do a Vertigo book. You're on ready. And he got it, if his story's correct, as reported in some media at the time.
According to him.
It's like it took a bit, but he was determined to get his stuff together to the point where he got to get Vertigo. And, of course, he wanted to do stuff like, I figured that one X-Force book he did at one point, where he can, I think every once in a while he gets a gig at Marvel and DC more easily than he might have gotten it 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I think there is I think you had to know your stuff more before you got some major assignments. I think there's no two ways about that. Yeah. And if people feel like I'm knocking the people who are working today, then I guess I'll be knocking the people who are working today. Hey,
it's your opinion.
That's no, but it was like when I would go to I used to hang out with an artist by the name of Malcolm Davis, and by hanging out with him, I had the opportunity to hang out at Continuity Studios, where Neil Adams, that was his company, and I remember going to some of the cons when Neil, they would do the portfolio reviews. The guys would bring their drawings up, and so Neil would look at it and he would say, "Okay, here's your art here. This is something that's being published by Marvel or DC right now. Does this look like that? If that didn't look like that, then you need to go back to the drawing board and basically until this sort of looks like up to that level, you're not going to get work." And that's something that Peter David, I think, had said one time, is he's talking to Harlan Ellison, who's a great sci-fi writer, and he's like, if you get in your head saying that, well, I can do better than that, he's like, yeah, you're right. You better do better than that if you want to get work in the industry.
I always thought like style. Like anytime someone like it's always a trip because I'm still very much on the come up. Like I have a following, I'm doing pretty good. I've been publishing, yada yada. You know, but I don't consider myself, you know, because I'm still trying to work my way up. But when I'm at like a show, like a convention or maybe a free comic book day event or whatever, and so people see me up there next to the other people, like, so they just assume, you know, because they're just, you know, they just guess. So it's like, oh, wow, he's dope, so you're sitting next to him. You must be dope, too. So it's like, so then it's like, your line's a lot shorter. I'm not going to pay attention to that. I just want to talk to you and maybe ask you some questions. And they'll sometimes, you know, you get some other creators where they want to, like, ask me for advice or, like, what do you think of this and stuff. And they'll be like, some people, they'll start off with, you know, my drawing's not that good. That's the number one thing I hear. Yep. Even if it is respectable, they'll be like, it's not good. I always tell them, and, you know, of course I advocate this because I'm not the cleanest illustrator. I'm more of a, like, I discover the drawing versus I'm drawing it.
That's the style.
But but I always tell them, like, don't get so caught up in your style or what it's supposed to be. There is a successful, you know, comic that looks like this. There's a successful comic that looks like that. And and it's just everything. Cartoons, movies. There's so many different ways you can approach a medium. Don't get caught up in what the art is. Get caught up in your storytelling. If you can do good storytelling, if you know how to craft a story, it super doesn't matter what your drawing is like.
And so, two things behind that. So I think that's one of the benefits of the 90s is that people's palettes, if you will, broadened a whole lot where they realized everything didn't have to look like this to be considered good.
Yeah,
it just didn't. So style is style. So really what it is the craft piece. So I think when you look at today, that's what a lot of people are responding to. They're responding to the lack of craft.
Yeah.
They're responding to the fact that this is a story that doesn't make sense. There isn't an establishment shot. There isn't a bird's eye view. It's just like, why are you picking this angle for this particular scene when you could be something else? Even though people don't understand all of the intricacies behind craft, it's kind of like, I don't know good art, but I know what I like.
Like you can feel it.
Yeah, you can feel it. You can feel it because you can tell when somebody's telling you a story. And then the other point to that is that I think Robert Crumb said something to this thing. Crumb. So when Crumb was like trying to get a thumb, he was like, he's trying to get a thumb just right, and he couldn't get it right. And the guy was like, look, that's a Robert Crumb thumb. This doesn't have to be this guy's thumb over here. Just do the best Robert Crumb thumb that you can. So what, at a certain point is that it becomes about, so you can say, oh, like Jeff Smith Bone. You can say, okay, Bone, it could be considered a cartoony style, but you realize there's a style of the draftsmanship that might be different than Captain Underpants. But Captain Underpants isn't meant to be what Jeff Smith is doing.
Right.
He's basically doing, for all intents and purposes, and I don't think you disagree, Pogo, which is a very kind of style that he was evoking. But it's like, if the story's good, you could be a Scotty Young.
Yeah.
And Scotty Young, that Rocket Raccoon series he did, I love that joint. And some of the stuff he was doing in terms of the storytelling, where he was doing some real Eisner-esque stuff in there, playing with words and pictures and stuff like that. It's like, I'll be stealing some stuff from in terms of writing.
He for real inspired me when, like, I found out about him, I think, when he was doing the Wizard of Oz series.
Yes.
So, like, I think he did, like, 3 different kinds or whatever. But I saw that and I was like, wow, the way that art, his style and the colors, I was like, this is dope. And I was like, I love the rough, like, it doesn't have to be clean for me to really like this. And, like, so now I do a sketchy style. Like, it's not really also, like, because it saves time, too. But, yeah, a sketchy style because I just like the way that looks. And it's like, he inspired me. It's funny because one time I saw him at Heroes Con, and I, like, I tore out a page of, like, it was like a preview page of the Oz thing from the previous book. I tore it out, and I wanted him to sign it. And he, like, this whole, super, you don't know who the hell signed it. But, anyways... And that was like, you know, never meet your heroes, you know.
Really?
No, I'm just joking. He was cool. He wasn't like, you know, he was just like still like I did it. You know, I went through that motion, and then like afterwards, I kind of maybe I'm just competitive, like because I'm also a cartoonist, and I was just like, this is cool, but I kind of want to, you know, like I realize I want more from him than just getting an autograph. Like I want to be your equal. I don't want to be your fan so much. I'm your fan, but I want to, you know, be, you know, your contemporary. So it was like, So that's what I was like. That's what I had to realize. This is what I want.
Mm-hmm.
I want him to be, my coworker, compete with him.
Yeah.
I don't want to just be the dude that holds the job.
But that's something to reach for. For me, I would have to say, I know what you mean by the not meeting your heroes thing, because I remember one con I went to when I was a young kid, and my father had taken me to it, where I got the chance to meet two of them. One was Larry Hama, who was the writer of the G.I. Joe comic, and I was a huge G.I. Joe fan. And I remember I went up to, when he was it was like behind a bunch of long boxes, and I want to say he was talking to Jim Shooter, because that's what it looked like, but whoever he was talking to. So I asked him a question. I said,
who looks suspiciously like Jim Shooter.
So I said, well, Mr. Hama, I was wondering, because you use all these terms in the G.I. Joe comic, did you serve in the military, and that's what helped you write the book? So he looks at the other guy, and he looks at me like, really, you stupid kid? Yeah, of course I served in the military. What kind of dumb question is that? And I remember feeling so crushed, because I was like, I don't think I was more than 8. So I was like, it's kind of like an 8-year-old question, It's like, you kind of like asking, like, I want to kind of write like that one day. So kind of like, do I need to go into the military, or can I just read up a bunch of books and may not have to put my life on the line and stuff like that? But then Stan Lee was at that same convention. And so it was the end of the day, things were shutting down. I remember me and my dad were like basically making our way out the hotel. And Stan Lee is standing by himself in between these 2 rows of elevators waiting for the elevator to come. And I was like, oh man, Dad, I want to go talk to Stan Lee. And he was like, no, you want to go up to him. It's like a long day, he's trying to get out of here.
Yeah.
But he let me go over. And I remember walking over to Stan, and I probably asked him the same kind of 8-year-old dumb question that I asked Larry Hama. And all I remember is Stan just bent down, put his hand on my shoulder. He gave me an answer that I will never remember. Only because it wasn't so much the answer, it was the fact that he didn't treat me like a dumb.
He took the time, He took the time. And I think that's what made Stan was so great. He was less of a creator, more of a showman.
Yeah.
And he knew how to be personable with people, and that's what propelled him and the entire industry.
And unless this is just him blowing his own smoke, and people who have worked with him may say different, but I think in some ways, if you look at how Ditko felt, Steve Ditko, who was basically you can consider the co-creator of Spider-Man, or Jack Kirby, have revealed themselves about what they thought their creator credit should be in terms of creating this stuff, is I think Stan knew that if you pick the right people for the job and let them do what they do, that's all you have to do. But at a certain point, a lot of it is just picking them. It's just picking people who know how to tell a story, who know how to get the job done, and then letting them kind of run with it. And then you come in and you get little tweaks and flourishes at that point. You have those debates. But you need people who are really either they're strong to begin with or teachable.
It's like the Jobs and Wozniak thing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like you kind of gotta. It's kind of like when it's like a Puffy and Mace. You gotta kind of know that's going back for some. You gotta kind of know. Yeah, you gotta kind of know your role. You have to know what your role is, and I think that's what I think a lot of people starting to realize nowadays with going comics is that it's kind of like you realize what a good editor is, and that how much of a role an editor plays in the book being good. It's not so much style. It really is. Do these people know their craft? And I think it's the case to be made that some of them just need a little more seasoning as they will. And I say all of that in anticipation of launch with anime concepts things. So of course now that I'm saying this stuff,
so tell me about that. Tell me about that because I googled it a little and I was just like actually let me just get it from him.
Oh no, it's not because we don't have anything that's out there yet. So basically it will be a small press comic company. And we go by small press only because it means that we really don't want to get engaged with some of the oversaturation of the market, as you will, because I think there's more than enough books out there for people to have to choose from, that no one needs to come in and add another 50 books on top of it. So our goal is not to do more than 9 titles. But I think it's basically, even though Milestone is talking about bringing that back, Server's a spiritual successor to that. Basically, a black-owned and I guess for lack of a better phrase, people of color operated comic company. We basically just want to tell good comic book stories in a bunch of different genres that have people that look like us. I think no different than with Stan and Jack and John Byrne and Chris Claremont and all those guys, Neil Adams and John Buscema did back in the day. It was just to tell really good stories where characters look like us. And I think what the goal for me with animated concepts is to get it in front of audiences that right now I think the direct market does an okay job getting in front of, but just basically try to get into more of a mass audience.
Like underserved markets.
Yeah, underserved markets, and I think underserved at this point is the mass market.
Yeah.
It's just underserved. I mean, James here at First Aid Comics does a great job.
Plug.
Yep, that's right. That's the plug. James here does a great job of having this store in the location that it's at, because as you know, we were sharing earlier about where your grandparents live. It's like if First Aid Comics was not here, the only stores that I would be able to get to would be Graham Crackers, which is already down in the Loop. So for those of you who either live in Chicago or just want to know about Chicago, that would be an hour and a half by bus or train, no matter how you cut it. Pretty much, definitely an hour to get down there. And then another place would be, another plug, because I love it, Alternate Reality, which is kind of like the showroom of comics, up on 115th Street, which is, I don't even know what it is by bus or train, because I never tried it, but by car it's easily 45 minutes, depending on the day, to get out there. So there really was, to my underserved, there was no comic store that I could easily get to from living on 71st and Lakeshore until James opened up. And same thing with the store in Little Italy. What's up, Tom? Tom Seymour down in Little Italy, same thing. It's like those two stores are now conveniently located on either side of my job or my home. So I'm good. But basically Animated Concepts, I think it's to really get to that underserved mass market where the kid is white, black, Puerto Rican, Haitian, to get a book in front of them that I think they see something of themselves in the heroes, and basically just to do some good storytelling. It's just I've had a love of comics since I was a kid, and I've got stories to tell. I know other people got stories to tell, and we like to tell them. And hopefully, if things go well, people like hearing them. So,
do you have stories out there now?
We don't have any stories out there now. So basically, right now we're getting teams together and getting some creators on board. So crossing my fingers and saying something to the man upstairs. It seems like there's one person I've been chasing for a long time for a project. I'll say it once we got it down. You don't want to jinx it. But you'll be one of the first people I'll let know once we get it. Basically get them on board. So a couple more conversations about that. Some other people who are some just unknown creators, but friends of mine. One going all the way back to my college days. It's kind of I promised them we would do a project like this, so I finally get to deliver on that part. But a lot of it's just coming from basically some projects that myself and my brothers worked on. That's going to make up the bulk of it. But really would like Animated Concepts to be a platform for creators who just haven't had a platform anywhere else. Yeah. If not this trip, maybe the next trip, we'll have to get you in touch with Elgin, who is the organizer of PocketCon. Have you ever heard of that, PocketCon? Okay, yeah, you definitely have to come back in town for PocketCon. So
that's here.
That's here in Chicago.
Okay.
They kind of bounce around the city a little bit. The last time they were downtown in the Loop, but great little convention. It's like old-fashioned Comic-Con like that, just long tables. And Elgin is a DJ Lokari. It's just it features creators, basically creators of color. Throughout the con, and it has connections with the Chicago Public Library system. So a lot of times they'll have buses coming with the kids who come in to do it. It's just basically introducing them to not only just comics but also to reading in general. But PocketCon it's actually the only con I've been to in the last probably 5 years. Not even C2E2. I haven't gone to that yet since I've been in Chicago. But PocketCon, I highly recommend it. You should definitely interview Elgin. I don't know if you get a chance to do it before you head out this time around, but definitely let me know next time you're in town, and I'll talk to him about you guys getting together, maybe even just doing something at the con itself. Yeah. But it's like I am going to be reaching out to him, because there are some guys that I've seen at the PocketCon where I haven't necessarily seen their books elsewhere other than probably online, about maybe getting some of those out in print. But yeah, it's I think we're really looking at Animated Concepts as being sort of a platform for those kind of books that might not get a place at Marvel, DC, or even Image, depending.
I get if you don't want to share your business strategies, but do you have an idea of how you want to get books to the underserved people? Yeah, I think the thing is basically going where they are, and I don't think it's hard. I talked about this on the Thinking Critical channel when we had done some research, and basically one of the things that came from the research was that the United States Postal Service did a research of their retail customers, and they said basically that people tend to buy stuff within 5 minutes of where they live. So that means that really what's really telling you is that they're not going to go too far
to get to go get a product unless they really, really wanted or need it. And even nowadays, when you talk about comics, it's not like you can just fall out your bed, walk 3 blocks around the area and find one.
Mm-hmm.
I think taking it to them. So a lot of it is that going to a place like PocketCon where those kind of customers show up. Some of it may be barbershops, depending on where you're going to. Some of it may be school book fairs, going to different school events, local expos. So we're really looking to do like a more of a grassroots thing. I think right now what we're targeting is basically, because I have myself here located in Chicago, my brother who's one of the partners in the companies in New York, and if this one thing goes through, we might have somebody who out in LA, if they're enough of a salesman, we'll get to that. But basically to kind of go off the beaten trail.
Mm-hmm.
Will direct market be a part of that distribution channel? Absolutely. We're also looking to target places that are non-traditional venues and places that were basically our customers, primarily Black customers, African American customers, Latino customers, Asian customers, and white customers where they would normally shop, but not necessarily shop. I mean, right now it's kind of like, I think we're almost leaning into or going into what might be considered like the pop-up shop model.
Mm-hmm.
But we wouldn't have enough material to do that, like a legit pop-up shop, but basically just to be at those venues and just get the books out from them. So definitely a grassroots strategy. So, because the one thing is, in talking with a lot of retailers, especially direct market retailers, what a lot of them is that the advice has been it's going to be substitution. It's like they'll tell you straight up, and I don't think any of them think that they're being discouraging in saying this, is that, you know, they mostly stock Marvel and DC, and unless your book is just that good, I'm not giving up that Marvel and DC money.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have something that is going to make either their customers substitute, or that they hear about it from their customers enough they say, you know what, put that on my pull list or whatever.
And there's ways to get, like, you know, there's so many ways to get, you know, to sort of buy that respect from them. You know, it's just, you could do something as simple as like coming to approaching mates such as James at First Day Comics over off of Hyde Park.
Mm-hmm.
You could approach him and just say like, hey man, I'm coming out with this book. I've got like the first 3 issues done. I want to do like somewhat of a release party. You think we can host that here? Put in like posters in the window, big poster, you know, hand out flyers to customers, you know, and then we have this major event for the, like, you know, like, yeah, depending on the reception, it's like, okay, we just did that, you know, and then maybe you'd be cool about too. Hey, you can get all the profits. Yeah, anything sold goes to you. It's like, if it does well, then it's like, hey man, you want to start carrying the book in the store?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're carrying the book in the store. It works. People like it. So it's just, I think a lot of times people get stuck at just like, oh, they don't want to carry the book in the store. It's like, well, what have you done to get them to want to carry the book?
And that's the thing what retailers will tell you. A lot of it, what it is that you have to build up enough awareness and interest in it that you have people coming in to look for it. Because even if they're coming in at issue 4 or 5, now you have to have enough cash for the last 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Or even if they're coming in at issue 4 and 5, say, hey, if you heard about this book, let me bring it in. Somebody like a James will bring that book in, and they'll order copies. You just have to be ready to serve that demand when it hits. And no, you're exactly right. It's like, I'm plugging another store because I love it. Challengers Comics and Conversation. Because
where's that?
That's on. I should have got an address, but they had a store down in Bucktown, but unfortunately with the whole looting and rioting thing, I don't think they'll be able to open that up. They're up on the on Western Avenue, a little bit past north. So Western Avenue. If you look it up, Challengers Comics and Conversation, they'll pop right up, and they have a Western store on Western Avenue. When I told them about what we were planning on doing, they were like, yeah, let us know when you're doing something, and we'll see if we can put something together. So the thing with you, for those of you who are either in the comics community or you're new to it, one of the things that I love about the comics community is the generosity of it. It's like you always find people that are willing to support people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you look, you know, if you're serious about it, or you know, if you're not so serious about it, they'll help you along the way. But it's like it's always been a very supportive community in terms of talent and building that sense of community.
Yeah.
And so you're right. It's you have to be creative. You just have to be creative in how you want to get your stuff out there. And if people I've talked to have given similar tips to what you talked about, how to get stuff in the store, sometimes, well, it's not a new strategy, but you know, one of our things is we will approach different retailers out and say, look, you can have the first 5 books for free, but just put this post. Would you put this post up in the window for the next 30 days?
Yeah.
And then whatever you sell these books here, that's fine. And if they go well, then we can talk about how much it's going to cost you to get the next 5 books.
Yeah.
So that's not even a new strategy. That's a Chicago Tribune strategy.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's new. That's
Nothing's
like
new.
what I was describing. Like, people do that for music all the time.
Exactly.
But it's just
Absolutely.
you just have to realize that it's a simple law of supply and demand.
Supply and demand, and that's what it is, Marcel.
Yeah.
At a certain point, it's like
Thank you
if
for
people. That's right. If people are demanding, and I had to do that because it's my one of my new friends, Kevin Grievous.
Okay.
I got that right because I mangled his name in another video, another show and another video. So I said,
say the Star Wars villain. Yeah.
well, Kevin, I'm gonna plug Kevin for a bit. So Kevin is one of the co-creators of the Underworld film franchise.
Oh, cool.
And he's also I believe he is the creator of Adam Brashear, the Blue Marvel character. That's,
Oh wow, yeah.
in Marvel Comics. And they were asking me in a Milestone video, I think in Critical, of people that, and Wes always stumps me with these questions. He asked me, which creators I think should be part of this new Milestone thing. I was like, good Lord, son. So I had to go with, and I went with Brian Hill, because I just read his Killmonger series. I was like, yeah, Brian Hill would be good for that. Kevin was the next one, but I forgot to ask him how to pronounce his last name, but I wanted to get in there too, so I took a chance, but it didn't go well.
Mistakes, right?
Yeah, mistakes. Yeah. So I had to redeem myself by remembering your name and saying it right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really is coming down to, especially where all the technology today has allowed people that anybody who basically has a vision and a dream to do comics can do it on some level. The rest of it is really your own hustle after that.
Yeah.
It's whether the idea is good and it's your hustle. And it's like, I'm looking forward to animated concepts, to being able to test out some of the theories that I have. And the biggest theory is that this market is a lot bigger than we think it is right now.
Yeah.
And you familiar with Comics by Perch?
I've heard y'all talk about you and Wes.
So he did a video recently about there's a lot of negative stuff for the most part when we talk about the comics industry. But one of the good things, and I made the point before, it's like if you came up in comics like any time probably before maybe 85,
Mm-hmm.
you could only be a certain kind of fan. It's like you're basically a superhero fan. The only question was, were you a Marvel fan or a DC fan? This is back when DC was known as dumb comics, and Marvel was just Marvel.
Yeah.
And it's like and I remember being one of those indie snobs, like it's like indie comic, that ain't a real comic book, this and that. And a friend of mine in one of my art classes challenged me on that, and that's how I discovered Turtles. I literally went into the comic store. Next time I went in, I said, I'm gonna try a book that doesn't look like a Marvel or DC comic. So Turtles is one I was picked. I was like, okay, this
And
is
called you out, huh?
yeah, yeah. But you know what? That's one of those mistakes we was talking about. Sometimes you got to mistake, it's the experience, and you learn something. And what I like about comics now, you say there is a comic for everybody now.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, when people talk about what's the problem with the industry, I say, guys, it's not the content. Not for the most part. I mean, yeah, okay. Could the craft be better for some things? All right, fine. But the content in terms of genres, in terms of styles and things like that, there's something for everybody. The problem really is it's the business part. It's how do we get this out to the most people possible? Not everybody's going to walk into a comic store. Some people don't even will say to me at times, but they still make those? Well, I did a post on my Facebook page when I was giving out some comics to some people. Oh, I remember those. It's not a going
It's not
concern.
current. Yeah.
It's not current. And the thing is that I just think we need companies and we need industry leaders who are going to. I think sometimes we have the industry has a little bit of an inferiority complex. It's like we serve as the basis for all of these multi-million-dollar franchises in areas of business, movies, TV, merchandising, licensing, whatever things. But it's like we think that, but when it comes to comics, well, you just can't. It can't be as big as that. And I think the most recent thing that just proved that they just didn't handle. They didn't know how to manage the momentum. Was Image Comics.
Yeah.
People don't understand what a seismic shift Image Comics was. And Image Comics, and I tip my hat to Image Comics every day, because Image Comics just showed that Jack Kirby, when he did it, probably Frank Miller when he did it. A few other guys when they did it, when they left to go out on their own, they had the right idea. They just didn't have the right strategy, which is everybody leave at the same time.
Yeah.
Everybody leave at the same time. This is all good. And then even Milestone, which I used to work at in the editorial department. And a lot of times, a lot of different reasons why people say Milestone failed. There was a friend of mine who actually became friends with a lot of us who used to work at Milestone. He said, you know what the thing about all you guys is? All of you have a different reason for why that company failed. And I think probably the closer you get to knowing why it really did not end up succeeding other than the market conditions at the time. Robert Kirkman, have you ever seen the Secret History of Comics series?
No.
So check it out. Episode 5 is Color of Comics. I just watched it recently doing research for something else. And it gets into like some of the, I guess the schism that came up between, I believe it was Dwayne McDuffie and Dennis Cowan.
Now I know what you're talking about. They had like an episode talking about Wonder Woman and all that stuff
You
too.
got it, exactly.
And I remember that was, I was just learning about that history. I was like, wow, that's where Wonder Woman came from? Okay.
Yeah,
But,
so it was that episode. So for so my friend was telling me, yeah, you got to check out that Kirkman thing, because it's like, that's probably the reason why it didn't survive. Even though it was the crunch in the 90s when the market contracted some, it didn't survive because the two of the major founders had a falling out. But like with Milestone, which I also credit to be a great seismic shift in the industry, because it basically showed that you could do comics that feature people who look like us, and they could be successful in a mainstream way. It's like, as I shared in another video, I said probably one of the biggest books they had, and it was probably the most wackiest in terms of ideas, the most exploitive, if you will, was Blood Syndicate. But that was the best team book going. Matter of fact, hold on for 1 second.
I was like, hurry up, we're starting to run out of battery. Oh, it's right there.
It's right here.
Yeah.
And you can get these from First Aid Comics online and come in the store. Blood Syndicate, I'm gonna hold it for the camera. Blood Syndicate was one of the best team books at the time. One of the best team books at the time, in terms of the characters, in terms of team dynamics, in terms of inter-character dynamics, in terms of plot, storyline. You could not beat this book at the time. It was in a bunch of stores in New York. It was on the employee favorites. It was on that book. I don't know if Ivan Velez Jr. started off writing that book. It might have been Dwayne McDuffie at one point, but that writing team for at least the first 24 issues, top notch. Can't beat it. And the thing about working at Milestone was, and really is why I enjoyed it, regardless of whatever went on behind the scenes, if you listened, if you asked, if you paid attention, you learned your craft working at that place. You learned your craft. I haven't worked in the industry professionally since I worked at Milestone, so we're talking about 94, 95. But everything I learned that was worth a damn, I learned working there. And everything that I've learned since has been proven out and validated by what I learned there. So it was, I don't know how the new one's gonna work out, because I think sometimes it's not so much putting the old band back together, but remembering why the old band was good and then moving it forward. Yeah. But it's like, no one will ever be able to take away what Milestone brought to the industry, both in terms of what they did in terms of sales and in the marketplace, in terms of the creators they turned out and the people that they taught. It was for me. I have very fond memories of it. Hope to duplicate it if I'm lucky and blessed to do so at Animating Concepts. But it was truly a special time and truly a special place. So between Image and Milestone, it was like the comic industry got better. It did better. And I think a big part of it is that I think even since the 90s, it's just managing the business. Just managing the business of comics. I think that's what everyone's trying to figure out. Like as James and I were talking, I was preparing for Animated Concepts, his thought is that all we're trying to do is figure out how to sell these floppies, as they call them. Or periodicals, if you want to be. But yeah, that's all they're trying to figure out. They're just trying to figure out how to sell these. If DC hasn't figured out how to sell graphic novels by now, I don't know who will. But it's trying to sell those. And the thing is that I think people still want to buy those. There's a place for digital. There's no doubt about that. But I don't think the industry has ever been more poised to be as in many places as they want to be when they want to be there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. It's like if you show up, people will Yeah, go to the what's that in the Field of Dreams?
Yeah.
If you build it, they will come or
So
whatever.
now the thing is, that's actually a false statement. If you build it, they won't come. If you go find them, then you built it, they'll come. But that's it's the because I have this sort of argument in my job all the time. It's like, you know, we have to realize sometimes is that people don't know, and what I mean by this is they don't know. They don't know what something is until you tell them. You actually have to go chase your customer, guys. You have to go chase your customers to a certain extent. If you open a pizza place up on such a thing, until you get 10 to 15 people who go in there and say, man, this pizza's really good, so they can go tell 15 more of their friends, it's not going to work. You got to put yourself out there. And I don't mean like billboards on the expressway or on the side of a bus, because I've worked with enough organizations where we found that basically broadcast advertising has its place, like when you put something out there, because it gives one touch point for people to know what you are and understand that. But the biggest thing is always word of mouth. That Jeff Smith with Bone, he was about to cancel it, I think, on the 5th or 6th issue until it started to take off. And it took off because people were talking about the book. You know, people got in front of their hands. So, you know, so let me ask you this, because I know we're probably running low on time.
Yeah.
So where can I find some of your stuff?
Well, if you would like to find any of Marcel Comics products, feel free to Google search Marcel Comics. Google will tell you, they'll show you Marvel Comics. They'll show you that. But you stay true. You be you stay true to who you are. It'll say search instead for Marcel Comics. Like, are you sure? Is that really what you want to do with your life? You'd be like, yeah, this is me. And then you can come up, you'll see my Facebook page, which is my major platform, where it's basically you could search in Facebook, did you mean Marvel Comics? That's the name of my page. So really big on there. I have a presence on Webtoon, where you can search the acronym DYMMCU. Did you mean Marvel Comics Universe? And that will give you access to anything I put up on there. And I'm also on the YouTube page, Home for Infinite Losers, because my pen name is Marcel the Loser.
Okay, yeah.
So little quick behind that. It's a reference to Fight Club. It's only after we've lost everything that we're free to become anything.
Okay.
So
let me ask you this, since I'm coming behind you in the marketplace. Okay. So what have you found to be your greatest challenge in getting your work out there? And what have you found to be your most effective strategy?
Okay.
All
right, this
or
is
tactic?
We're going to drop the mic on this one. All right?
Okay.
All right. So the more you try, the more you will succeed. It's really just that simple. So when I used to be a lot more reserved, like when you stop yourself short, like, how do I put my book in a store? I don't know how to do that. If you stop yourself short there, of course your book will never be in a store. If you simply go to the store and ask them, such as James here at First Aid Comics, if you go there and ask them and like you try to work out something, you can get your book into a store. If you want to start a podcast, if you just want to get someone on your podcast, all you gotta do is take the risk of DMing somebody and see if they hit you back. They don't hit you back, that's cool. Ask someone else. You just have to keep trying. As far as what works actually in the marketplace, I've noticed that the market shifted a lot more so to, like, consumers just in general are shifting to digital platforms. Okay. There's still room for physical copies. I just don't think that's not necessarily what the youth is targeted, just because they haven't came up on it. Like you said, the industry hasn't really, they've kind of like what's that word?
Shortchanged it?
Yeah, I was about to just say they screwed themselves, but they screwed us all to the point to where no one knows. Like you said, it's not really common knowledge, so it's just like, no, that's, if I want something like that, I have to go on YouTube or anime or manga. It's not really a comic book anymore. So because of that, and I try to reach as many young people as I can, I do a lot of digital marketing. I run a lot of Facebook ads, and that helps me grow my following exponentially, a lot faster than I've ever done it, like just giving out flyers at comic book stores and conventions. I did that for years. Nothing would happen. I would leave my links on my Webtoon or comics and everything, sell books and all that stuff. Everything's in there. Nothing would happen. Running like Facebook ads for $5. Yeah. All of a sudden, I got like all these people coming at me. It's like the market is on the digital platform for the people who aren't already in here. Yeah. So if you just have to look, like you said, think outside the box. find what's working for other industries, and that will take you in a good place. I'll tell you this right now, what I'm thinking about for physical copies is, like you said, getting them into other kind of offbeat stores. Like I'm looking for places that sell candy. So
I'm with you on that one.
what I'm doing right now is I'm sort of stealing candy boxes from stores, gas stations that go empty.
Yeah.
My plan is to take those and then sort of DIY them into my own little box, you know, print out some stuff at Kinko's or at the house or whatever, my little graphics, my characters. You make it look exciting, like, what's this? I'm going to go to one of my local stores that have candy at their register, because I went to the traditional route just to put my book in the store. Sold a couple books, but it's in this mass chasm of other books.
Stuck in the back and all that.
It's hard to be seen, even with, you know, you could do all this and it's right there, but it's in a sea. So you're really like taking a risk on that. Versus if you put yourself right up here next to the register, they're gonna see you, and it's right next to all the other impulse buys such as candy, and that's really what you want to do. So I don't do professional printing anymore when it comes to that. I do DIY printing. I found out how to just basically take a piece of paper, fold it over into a couple times, and now you can have this little small book. Costs you 25 cents to print. And you can, you sell, the whole idea is, like, again, you give it to the store for free. Just be like, just put these out there, see how you feel. It does good, you know, you promote it, whatever. Now you have a relationship, and it's like, yeah, you just buy these from me, like 50 cents. You buy this from me for 50 cents, you sell them for $1. And then boom, that's easy, doubling your money profit right there. It's small time, you'd have to put in a lot of stores, but as far as just selling books to people who don't necessarily buy comics, that's an idea I've had.
And I'll say this, and we're dropping the mic this, but I love the idea, like, of you being wise enough to realize, grab this, create a standee, take all the work out of it. It don't cost them nothing. You already got a standee custom that's pushing it, and go from there. So that's a great idea.
Especially
if
you're
doing
doing
that, by the way.
Hey, I wouldn't have said it if I wasn't worried. I told you I'm competitive, so I wouldn't have told you.
And a good competitor knows, it's like, I can tell you whatever. That don't mean you're going to necessarily.
Yeah, that too. It's like, but I will tell you this, guys. For anybody out there who's like a creator and wants to do cons and all that stuff, it's okay to not have it professionally printed and just DIY it, because all you really need is a color cover. Okay, it can be a black and white inside. It doesn't necessarily have to be the most sharpest, coolest thing. Save that for when you're really pushing your stuff to, like, the people who are really excited for your product, and that's more so giving back to them, you know. But as far as, like, going to a convention where they're gonna upcharge the hell out of you for that table, where they make it so hard for you to even make it, you know, worth going there. It's more so just something you did for fun, like going to Disney World or something. It's not like it wasn't a good business move. You keep your costs down by making these DIY books. People are excited just that you're doing stuff like this. You keep it interesting. Get colored pieces of paper, not just white pieces of paper. So you get red printing paper, blue printing paper, yellow printing paper. Maybe mix it in so it's like a rainbow of pages. That's what Shonen Jump does, and they've been outselling the American comic market for years. So it's like, don't get so caught up in what a comic is supposed to be. And more so, like we said earlier, stick to your story. Keep that on just on par with all these other great stories out here, all these Hollywood movies. You keep your storytelling on par with all these other respectable stories, and it doesn't matter what it looks like. South Park, it's been running for years. It's not Norman Rockwell, all right? You don't need all of that. You're gonna be okay. You just gotta be you and write your story.
I'm gonna stick in one more question.
Man, we done. What you talking about? Go ahead.
So cons, do you think cons are worth it then? Because I'm not convinced that they were. I've been leaning towards being convinced that they weren't.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, do you think they're worth it? I mean,
cons,
the scope of things?
Cons are a great experience, a great way to meet fans. It's not about, like, at this point, it's not about money. It's about building your following. I have this other plan. I'll tell you off the video just because I like you. Yeah. But, you know, it's more so about building your following. Okay. And it's not necessarily about making sales, making a profit. Like I said, do the DIY thing if you're, you know, looking to make some money, you know, just for expending all this or whatever. But it's really more so about the fans and building a relationship with them. Like having a following already before you go there and saying, y'all, I'm going to be here. come by the table, we can just chop it up. If you want a book, sure, you get a book. You know, I'm not really selling them for a lot. It's like I'm just decided that people are down for my stuff. You build a strong relationship with them. You get more people to get on you. Here's a quick little freebie. Anybody who can actually draw, you're not just a writer. If you can draw, yeah, we're about to run out of time. If you can draw, give away free commissions just if the people follow you. That's an easy way to build your following, okay? Draw something real quick, but you have to follow me on my page, and I'll draw something for you real quick, and then boom, you good. So, but thanks for coming, Gevian.
Thank you. I learned something new.
Oh, we should have shook
new
hands.
stuff.
Corona. But that's all right. That's all right. That's all right.
You got back.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for. I really appreciate it. And
pleasure's all mine. I'm gonna do it again soon.
So thanks for watching, y'all, and y'all have a nice day.
Take care, everybody.
Come on, Benny, man. The kid is a L7 Weenie.